Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic Podcast, and I'm your host Rahul N. Singh. Thank you for taking out the time today to either watch or listen to this podcast episode. Today we will be continuing on with my thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita. But before that, there's a few things I would like to let you know about. If you would like to support the Bearded Mystic Podcast, do sign up to our podcast Patreon page, where you can get ad-free and bonus episodes and other benefits depending on the tier that you pick. Details are in the show notes and video description below. Other ways to support the podcast is through Supercast and through Apple Podcast subscriptions. Every Saturday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time, there is a free virtual meditation session along with a discussion and Q&A that lasts for an hour in total. Please find the details in the show notes and video description below if you are interested in meditating with us. Please like, comment and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast streaming app, please do rate and review the podcast and do follow or subscribe to get future episodes. Let's do a recap of the last episode. In the last episode, we finished the 6th chapter and we specifically looked at verses 40 to 47. Shri Krishna begins his answers to Arjun's questions and says that any action that benefits one and all will never be degraded in this life or the next. Shri Krishna says even if you don't complete your yoga in your current life, you will go to Svargaloka and eventually pass your time there with much delight. However, you will come back to earth and take birth in a family that will be beneficial for your spiritual growth. Shri Krishna gives hope, yet a warning too, that one will be born in a family of spiritual practitioners, so that's a good thing. But it's also both rare and very difficult to be born in a house that is conducive to spiritual freedom, to Jivan Mukti. Shri Krishna also is guiding us on how practicing this yoga does bring benefits, especially from previous lives. The effort is never wasted and we pick up where we've left off in terms of spiritual practice. Shri Krishna guides on why union with awareness, dropping all notions of loss and gain, one becomes a perfected yogi, and Arjun should strive only for the highest, nothing less. Shri Krishna says the yogi will be awakened by the Vedic sounds like Om, and that will reawaken their journey towards realization. A burning desire will be awakened to achieve liberation in that very life. This is a goal set in stone. Shri Krishna also talks about how one should keep going on as they work on their spiritual goal of enlightenment. Their mind will be controlled and material tendencies will be removed whilst they attain liberation. This is not an overnight success, but one over many lifetimes, and Shri Krishna guides us that to have this ecstatic and loving devotion towards Nirgun Brahman, towards the true self, and to connect our awareness deeply within our own self and remain in this loving relationship forever. Today we will begin the 7th chapter and we will be looking at verses 1 to verse 7. Verse 1, Sri Bhagavan said, O Arjun, now hear what occurs when the thinking, feeling, willing and memory faculties of manas are completely focused upon me, and the yogi is fully absorbed in the practice of yoga, taking shelter only in me, with no doubts remaining regarding my existence. We're going to look at the whole verse together. First of all, Shri Krishna starts off with the goal. What is the expectation from practicing this yoga? What are we going to get from it? What are we going to achieve? Every thought has to be focused completely on formless awareness. That needs to be our focus. That needs to be where we are attentive towards. That's what we come back to in our day-to-day activities. No matter what happens, we are still going to remain in the awareness of the formless. Now, what happens is we will conduct our daily activities as normal. We will be eating, sleeping, drinking, enjoying life, and also facing the miseries of life. But we will be in that formless awareness. Every feeling and emotion is to be focused on formless awareness. Every wish and desire is to be focused on formless awareness. You see, it's very easy to desire something material, of prakriti, of nature. We fall into that nature of desiring things because we think this object of desire is going to bring us happiness. But really, formless awareness is where happiness is, because where there is stillness, there is happiness. Once we find that inner stillness, that stillness within our practice, the stillness within the mind, then we feel happy. Then we get back to that base level of happiness, that foundational level of happiness. Again, every memory of the teachings is to be focused on formless awareness. Memory in terms of memories of our past, we are to focus it back onto formless awareness. And even when we are remembering the teachings, are we looking at the teachings in the sense of the knowledge that we've received from Sri Krishna of the real and the unreal? Or are we actually looking at the wisdom or the knowledge of the scriptures? Are we looking at it through our culture? If we're looking at something through our culture, then it's going to be very impermanent, very transient. But that teaching, which is related to that formless, related to the knowledge that we have of the real, which is changeless, which is formless, imageless, which is the base of all of our existence, which is this formless awareness. When we go back to that, then that knowledge becomes a scripture, that knowledge becomes a reality. And that's what we need to keep doing. So by doing this, every bit of the mind is fully absorbed and integrated into the practice of yoga. Everything is a practice of yoga. Think about it. While doing this recording right now, I'm in the practice of the yoga because there's no expectations. Things will perform as they are, and it carries on. I do not think about the number of downloads. It makes me happy. It makes me sad when it doesn't do so well. But I move on and go back to formless awareness, because that is where stability is. If I let the mind go wild, then yes, my emotions will be fluctuated according to the downloads or to the views on YouTube. But if I just perform this without thinking about the results, by just sharing this wisdom openly, and for those that really want this depth, then that is all that's needed. Every bit of the mind can be absorbed and integrated into this practice of yoga, even when it comes to every activity of life, whether that's eating, drinking, sleeping, dreaming, watching TV, whether that's listening to a podcast, being on your phone, being on TikTok, on Instagram, any activity, even if it's sex, all activities can be done as a practice of yoga. It's really dependent on how much we remain in formless awareness and how much we are away from formless awareness. Remember, if you're chasing pleasure, then you're not in formless awareness. If you're in formless awareness, where is the notion of pain and pleasure? Yeah, that's the difference. Take the shelter of formless awareness. There is nothing else. That is the only thing present. Remember, omnipresent. Nobody else to take shelter in, because the Guru would tell you to go to the formless awareness, because the Guru's form will go, but this formless will never go. And that's why a true Guru always points you to the formless, always points you to that which will never disappear, which will never change, which will never go with time, which is not dependent on your birth and death, that is beyond this. That is what a true Guru brings to us. Only formless awareness is all-pervading, omnipresent and changeless. Taking shelter in me, when Sri Krishna says this, means is simply being aware of being aware. That's what he means. This is what Rupert Spira's main teaching is, but it's also very key here that that's what taking shelter means. So whenever you feel that you're getting absorbed into the world, where desires are coming up, where anger is coming up, where enmity is coming up, jealousy, greed, all these things, when they are rising up and coming up to the boiling point, then we go back to the shelter of being aware of being aware. We are basically going back to being in awareness of formless awareness. When one is in awareness of formless awareness, then one is automatically at peace and at tranquility. Now, is Sri Krishna talking about the existence of his name and form? I always refer back to this because I never know when someone may listen to this episode for the first time, and there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of misguided teachings about what Sri Krishna means when he says me. That's why I always make it clear whenever he says this, that we understand that he's not talking about the existence of his name and form. Absolutely not. If we think this, then we have also fallen back into delusion and attachment. Yeah, because only someone in the body and mind will be attached to a body and mind. But one who sees himself as the formless awareness will see the other as formless awareness. Therefore, when we understand the real teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, we will understand that Sri Krishna is formless awareness, giving us the wisdom of its own self. And not only its own self, but our very own self. Once you see directly this formless awareness, once you look at it directly and you perceive it and you're able to then absorb in it, you can never doubt it. After that, all doubts are disappeared. They dissolve away naturally. All doubts are removed. Not one iota of doubt will remain. This will take time, but it will get there. So some may linger on, but they will be uprooted. And every true guru will always tell you to doubt, will ask questions, to make sure you understand wisdom. Every true guru asks that. If a guru doesn't ask that or doesn't guide you towards that, then they're not being genuine, or they're not completely sure about how to explain the truth themselves. If you're part of a society or a community or a guru that tells you to question, you're in the right place. And I always say, you can always ask questions to me too. I'm available on social media and I'm there to answer your questions. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna wants us to dedicate all functions of the mind, thinking, memorizing, sensing, feeling, desiring, towards formless awareness. No doubts should remain when we stay in the constant awareness of formless awareness. If we follow this, we can get to Jivan Mukti, we can get to liberation while we're alive. And this is the ultimate point of existing in this world as the Jiv. The Jiv is mainly looking for enlightenment, for liberation. But what happens is it gets to see all the shining lights of desires. So when desire comes up, it blocks or it veils what it's really looking for. So when we're able to address these shining lights of desire and we address them properly, with respect, with honor, then the Jiv automatically knows that, oh my God, I was chasing after something else, when really it was Brahman that I was searching for. In verse 2, Sri Krishna says, I will explain in detail the Gyan, the sacred knowledge, from which you will achieve Vigyan, ultimate knowing and perfect discernment. Knowing this, nothing greater remains to be known in this world. Let's break this verse up a little. I will explain in detail the Gyan, the sacred knowledge from which you will achieve Vigyan, ultimate knowing and perfect discernment. A wonderful verse actually to set the pace for what we're going to be achieving here. First of all, Brahm Gyan, this knowledge that creates insights into Brahman, is the most supreme knowledge. If you have a look at the scriptures, they say that knowledge which takes you to Brahman is the most supreme knowledge. That is true intelligence. It creates insights into Brahman. It gives us what you could say intuitive responses to understand what we really are. By learning this by a competent teacher, someone well versed in the scriptures, who lives an ethical life and has a consistent spiritual practice. This is very important. First of all, a competent teacher is that which is well versed in the scriptures. If they don't know the Upanishads, if they don't know the Ashtavakra Gita, if they don't know the Bhagavad Gita, if they don't know elements of the Vedas that's related to the scriptures towards philosophy and Brahman, I would say stay away from them. If they can't even talk about Kabirji or what he really was talking about, or Ravidas Ji, or Mirabai, or Rumi, any of the mystics we've discussed in the wisdom of the mystics, even their sayings, just remember that a person that you're looking for today has to be well versed in those. The other thing is they live an ethical life. Their life is where they don't cheat others, they're honest towards others, and has a consistent spiritual practice, continuously practicing spirituality in any shape or form. Whichever way they can, they remember this formless awareness and they get absorbed in this formless awareness. From this wisdom, you will get Vigyan. Sri Ramakrishna was very big on Vigyan. There's a Swami called Swami Medananda Ji, who has given insights into how Swami Vivekananda also expanded upon this teaching from Gyan to Vigyan. And Vigyan is basically the ultimate knowing. There is nothing more important to know and realize. Once you know Brahman, that's the ultimate. So you know it now, you know what Brahman is, Then Vigyan is, this Gyan provides a perfect recipe for discernment. One is firm in conviction on what is real and unreal. Basically, what happens here to turn Gyan to Vigyan, Vigyan is when we discern between what is formless and what is form. Whatever has an iota of form, whether that's subtle, the subtlest of the subtle, or whether that's completely physical and gross, that is form, therefore it's unreal. Even air has a form, it's a subtle form, yeah? If there's a breeze, you feel air. Even space, you can occupy space. Even space is a form. A subtle form is what it is. But this formless, this awareness actually has no form. This awareness doesn't have a time, place or location. This awareness doesn't have a boundary of any sense or any way. It's not contained in any way. Vigyan takes us to that. So what happens is, you know the knowledge, but now Vigyan is, you completely embody the knowledge. You're completely convinced of it, and you keep going back to it. When you're getting too attached to the world, then you go to Vigyan. You go to remember what is real and unreal, what is formless and what is form. That's what we do. Shri Krishna is going to help us because he's going to provide in great detail, as he says. So we must pay attention. Then the second part of this verse is, knowing this, nothing greater remains to be known in this world. A very clear line there. What else can be known after you realize your true self? Because that's the whole purpose of spirituality. That's the whole purpose of your life. That's the whole purpose of why the Jeev that you are right now is watching this YouTube channel or listening to this podcast. Because it's in search for that knowledge which will take him to the Supreme. Otherwise, not everyone can listen to this. Not everyone is ready for this type of knowledge. Everyone is ready for some sort of spiritual practice. Give them a ritual and they'll take it up. But give them wisdom and they don't know what to do with it. But it's wisdom that will take them out of the predicament that they're in. You can have all the knowledge of the world. Know every topic in the world. You can be a human encyclopedia, or as today would be a human Google. But it's pale in comparison to this knowledge of the self. To anyone that is a Jivan Mukta or a knower of Brahman, the knower of formless awareness, Google and an encyclopedia is pale in comparison. Absolutely pale. Establish yourself in this Brahm Gyan, in knowing this Brahm Gyan, this knowledge that leads us to insights into formless awareness. The context of the whole verse is, there is nothing higher than knowing the ultimate knowledge of Brahman. This will help us to achieve the highest spiritual goal, which is liberation through Vigyan. Verse 3, among thousands of human beings, few are consistently searching for Siddhi, ultimate self-perfection. Even among those who are seeking such Siddhis, very few are aware of my true nature. Let's look at the first part of this verse. Among thousands of human beings, few are consistently searching for Siddhi, ultimate self-perfection. Siddhi is sometimes also seen as spiritual powers, and the spiritual powers are mentioned in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, but we won't go into it because it's not our main discussion point for today. But in this verse, it is seen as the ultimate self-perfection. How do we get to self-perfection? It's through Gyan, and only a few are true seekers of Brahm Gyan. So in this sense, Sri Krishna is saying a Siddhi is someone who has the ultimate self-perfection, basically a Jivan Mukta. So someone can know, someone can look to perfect themselves, so someone can look to moderate their eating habits, moderate their sleeping habits. They may be able to moderate their thoughts, control their emotions. They may be very good practitioners, but are they really aware of formless awareness? And that's why in the second part of the verse, Sri Krishna says, even among those who are seeking such siddhis, very few are aware of my true nature. Out of those few seekers anyway, even fewer actually realize the self. Remember, he says among thousands of human beings. So think about it. Today there's billions of people, and thousands are consistently searching for siddhi, ultimate self-perfection. They're all looking for it. They're all searching here and there for it. Everyone is looking for it. In fact, it's the biggest business today. You look at a Tony Robbins, you look at a Sadhguru, you look at any of these people who sell be your best self type of thing, there's thousands of them. There's thousands of teachers and millions are following them. They're all trying to point to that. And because of those people, millions of people are searching for that self-perfection. But Sri Krishna says they're on one level. But this other level that we're talking about is why you are here listening to this podcast right now, or watching this podcast. Because you, out of those thousands, are a few people who are seeking to actually realize the self, actually become aware of formless awareness. To be in the awareness of it all the time. You get the knowledge, you've received the knowledge, but you're also embodying it. Hence, it's Vigyan. And when you embody this wisdom, then you are aware of what that Brahmgyan is, or what Sri Krishna really is, and what Sri Krishna is really pointing to. And there is only Nirgun Brahman, pure consciousness, formless awareness, simple. That's the only self-perfection. Remember, thousands are seeking it. How many are getting it? Again, Sri Krishna is pointing to being aware of being formless awareness, and only a few will ever get to full realization and attain liberation. Only a few. And it is very, very rare. And you know, this line of people being very rare and very few is something consistent amongst most spiritual traditions. Very few really want this. Very few really desire it. Very few will give everything for it. And what I would say, if you're listening to this, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep asking, keep inquiring until you get there, but never give up. I can guarantee you that if you remain consistent in your practice, if you remain convinced that you will get there, you will get there. Because the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is for us to practice, for us to embody. Let's continue on with our practice, never give up. That's something we can promise ourselves, even today, even in this moment. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna talks about how only a few ever really seek the knowledge of self-perfection, which is Brahman, this Jnana Brahman. And out of those few, even fewer actually realize that they are Brahman and attain liberation through Vigyan. So remember, a lot of people are looking for self-perfection, self-improvement, and all this type of stuff. Good, there's nothing wrong with it. If people feel happiness through it, that's good. But remember, they really want self-perfection, but they're going the other direction. We are bringing people back into direction, saying what you're really looking for is to be aware of what you really are. Verse 4, my Prakriti is composed of 8 energies. The first 5 are the tangible energies, earth, water, fire, air and space. The 3 intangible energies are manas, which consists of thinking, feeling, willing or desiring, and memory faculties, buddhi, the analytical faculty that discerns one thing from another, and ahamkara, the faculty that misidentifies the consciousness of the Atma with the minute particles of matter. This is genius stuff. First of all, let's look at the first part of the verse. My Prakriti is composed of 8 energies. The first 5 are the tangible energies, earth, water, fire, air and space. Obviously, there's more energies out there or elements out there, but Sri Krishna really is trying to keep this as simple as possible. And imagine, if he said every element out there, this book could be more than 700 verses. Sri Krishna explains what nature is, what Prakriti is, and what the universe is made from. He gives the first 5 elements, the 5 tattvas, which are earth, water, fire, air and space, and we can experience each of those. The earth is our body and what we walk on. Water is within our body, in our bloodstream and is in the ocean, rivers. Fire is within our body, burning fat during exercise and burning food during digestion. We can see fire when we look at the sun and also when we cook food. Air is what helps the brain function through oxygen, and we see air when we see leaves or branches moving during strong winds, and space is within our body so that everything can function. Likewise, we look around and see that space is everywhere, and we know its existence because we move items from here to there. So, relatively simple. Then the next part of the verse is, the three intangible energies are manas, which consists of the thinking, feeling, willing and memory faculties, buddhi, the analytical faculty that discerns one thing from another, and ahamkara, the faculty that misidentifies the consciousness of the Atma with the minute particles of matter. These intangible energies are all internal. We have the manas. This helps us think, feel, desire and have memory. That's the basic function of the mind. Then the buddhi is what helps us to analyze what action to do, as well as discern one thing to another, whether that is a choice, the understanding of reality, or knowledge of any topic. Our analytical mind is what helps us create those choices or create those answers, which helps others, but also discerns whether something is reality or just a figment of our imagination. Then the ahamkara is also known as the ego or false identity. This believes we are tiny atoms built with a solid structure, which we call the body, and also the mind. It also stops us from understanding our true reality, which is consciousness or awareness itself. Awareness is present, yet hidden within and beyond these five energies. That's what we have to understand. What we could say is these 8 energies hide the Atma, and therefore the ahamkara misidentifies what the consciousness really is. The awareness of the Atma is not matter, but it is consciousness itself, it's awareness itself. And Atma is our true self. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna gives us an understanding of what Prakriti or nature is. He explains the 8 energies, which are 5 tangible and 3 intangible energies. Verse 5, these 8 unconscious energies constitute my apara prakriti, unconscious nature that is manifest as the realm of matter. Beyond that and distinct from it is my param, fully conscious and immortal nature. The countless atmas or jiva bhutas are manifestations of my param energy and are the moving force within every jagat or material universe. Let's break this down and let's look at the first part of the verse. These 8 unconscious energies constitute my apara prakriti, unconscious nature, that is manifest as the realm of matter. The 8 energies that we just looked at previously, they're all unconscious because they are not consciousness itself. This is the unconscious nature, you could say, of Brahman or consciousness. It is not awareness itself because it is manifested with form within the realm of matter. It's an object that we can observe and an object that we can identify with. Therefore, if we can observe it or identify with it, it means it's an object. Therefore, it's not the subject, which is consciousness. They have no real existence because they are constantly changing. We know that of the body, of the mind, or the manas, or the ahamkara, or even of the 5 tangible energies: earth, fire, air, water and space. We know that all those are subject to change. The second part of the verse is, beyond that and distinct from it is my param, fully conscious and immortal nature. The param tattva or element is that which is beyond those 8 unconscious energies of nature, or what you could say the param energy, the ultimate energy, which is beyond those 8 unconscious energies of nature. It is also distinct from these 8 elements because when we are aware of formless awareness, we see that the body and mind has nothing to do with this state, as it has always been ever present. It is most supreme or param because it's fully conscious of its own self, it's fully aware of its own awareness. It is immortal because it has no change or modification. The third part of the verse is, the countless atmas or jiva bhutas are manifestations of my param energy and are the moving force within every jagat or material universe. Now, the countless jivas are just subtle manifestations of awareness, of existence. It is the jivas that are the moving forces within this material universe. Now, you could see the jivas as energies, energy forces that have a form. It is the jiva which gives the life force to both animate and inanimate objects of this universe. Due to lack of clarity, we think there are countless jivas, but remember, the energy or essence is one, and therefore it appears countless, but it is one and the same as Brahman. Now, one thing I will say here is that we can just remind ourselves of Adi Shankaraji's line of Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmeva Na Apara. Brahman is the ultimate existence, the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality. This world is neither real nor unreal, depending on what you associate yourself with, and this jiva is exactly the same as Brahman. There is no difference between the jiva and Brahman. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna guides us on what is one's true nature, and that is when we are fully conscious and fully aware of our immortal nature. Even the jivas or souls are nothing but subtle manifestations subject to change due to reincarnation, but in essence they are actually one and the same as Brahman, but due to the ahamkara they have misidentified what they really are. Verse 6. Try to understand that all beings have originally descended into this apara world from the para realm of Brahman, entering through the portal of my cosmic yoni or womb. I am the creator of and ultimately the destroyer of every material universe. Let's break this up a little. Try to understand that all beings have originally descended into this apara world from the para realm of Brahman, entering through the portal of my cosmic yoni or womb. Every being, good or bad, has firstly entered this material world of unconsciousness, or this unconscious energy, and donned on an unconscious form of the body, or the 5 tangible energies, and then obviously inherited the 3 intangible energies. We have all originated from the shared being, the ground of existence, which is Brahman itself. Sat Chitananda, Sat is that ground of existence. The cosmic womb is where the material universe and ultimate realm of Brahman intermingle with each other and merge, although appearing as two. The para realm of Brahman is the only thing that really is, and we have to understand that all beings have originated from that ultimate realm. Shri Krishna says in the next part that I am the creator of and ultimately the destroyer of every material universe. Brahman is obviously the creator and destroyer of every material universe, even the sustainer. It is all happening in this shared ground of existence, and everything will dissolve back into Brahman, into formless awareness. That's eventually what's going to happen. We automatically know that the creator and ultimately the destroyer of the material universe is nature itself. This is something we have to understand as a subtle point, only because Sri Krishna has talked about how this is an apara world, a world that is not essentially real. It's not an ultimate existence. It is, you could say, unconscious world. So it's not conscious of itself, and therefore it's not real. It's a subtle point that we have to remember, and we have to keep ourselves alert about. This is something we have to truly understand. And if you have questions about this, do ask me. We can elaborate on this even further. The context of the whole verse is that Sri Krishna talks about how the material universe and the spirit meet in the cosmic ground of existence, in the yoni, in the womb, the shared being, and eventually they manifest in some form, and eventually it will dissolve back into formless awareness. Then verse 7, O Arjun, there is nothing greater than me or beyond me. All that exists is held in place by me, just like the jewels strung on a necklace are held together by invisible threads. A very nice analogy, a very nice image to remember this by. First part of the verse is, O Arjun, there is nothing greater than me or beyond me. Now who is this me? Again, Sri Krishna is talking about his true nature, his true self, which is Brahman. There is nothing greater than Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate. Nothing can ever be beyond Brahman, because Brahman simply is. And Arjun must understand this. Remember, that which is real never changes. Hence, there is nothing greater than that, and there is nothing beyond that. It is the ground of all existence. That's why there is nothing greater than Brahman. This is what Sri Krishna is referring to. Not to his physical form or his physical mind, then he will fall back into Prakriti. Then all we are worshipping is a Prakritic Krishna, not the spiritual or adhyatmic Krishna. Understand the difference here. Subtle point, but many of us don't know. And this is what we have to understand. Then Sri Krishna says, all that exists is held in place by me, just like jewels strung on a necklace are held together by invisible threads. All of this material universe, all these manifestations are held by this invisible power of Brahman. Yeah, it's there. It's like, so, it's all interconnected. Just like beads or jewels on a necklace. So you can see the objects of this universe as beads or jewels or pearls on a necklace. They're held by a thread that we cannot see, an energy we cannot see. This whole world, this whole universe is interconnected, even though we cannot see how it connects. But now we should know that formless awareness is what is holding everything together. So understand from this that there is only formless oneness, nothing more, nothing less. The context of this whole verse is that Sri Krishna declares to Arjuna that there is nothing beyond formless awareness or beyond oneness, and that all of this is interconnected in one united oneness, and it can never break, because this thread is not just invisible, it is also unbreakable. When you see everything with that oneness, then naturally there is love, there is harmony, compassion, peace and bliss. And that's what we're all looking for in life. And if you are that few that are searching for this, if you are the few that are searching for that real wisdom, that complete ultimate self-perfection, this is your way to understand it. That is the end of the episode. Please do share this podcast with your friends and family who may enjoy this content. Follow me on social media to keep getting updates, or you can ask me questions on social media. Join the Bearded Mystic Podcast WhatsApp community group to continue the podcast discussion. Details are in the show notes and video description below. If you would like to support the Bearded Mystic Podcast, because we do need your donations to help us run the podcast, check out the podcast Patreon page. Details are in the show notes and video description below. Please rate and review the podcast on our website, www.thebeardedmysticpodcast.com. Please do like and comment on this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And please follow or subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast streaming app. Thank you very much for listening. Let's end this with the Soham and Shanti Mantra. Soham, Soham, I am that, I am that. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Namaste.